Hello, thanks for coming, everyone. Why did we even bother with new software when we already have Metrix? Metrix works great. Well, there was a few things that Metrix is not so great at, and one of which we didn't realize, and we're starting to realize more so. So one of them was, after 244 rows, it becomes, you can't add any more rows to any of the registers, like the weather data or the bill register or variables, and that can be a problem on some of these large projects. And some of you in the ESCOs have run into this, and it is such a pain in the butt to try to deal with this. Okay, that's one issue. And why does that happen? Well, they meaning SRC Systems, the people who originally made Metrix, they made a bad decision, and they chose to use a certain database which they shouldn't have used. They used SQL or some derivative of SQL. They wouldn't have had that problem, but they made a mistake, and they know it. Okay, number two, when Metrix gets really big, you have 200 projects, or not projects, 200 meters or so, it starts to really slow down. That's another problem. Again, database related. Number three, the report maker, which I love, which I wrote myself, at least I wrote it for the first several years, and then I handed it over to other people who are better than me. But the report maker is great because it can do whatever you want it to do, or almost anything you want it to do. But what's not great about it is Microsoft occasionally will introduce new libraries, or maybe they'll have bugs here and there in their, their Excel Visual Basic libraries or whatever. And so when you end up with these new versions of Office, sometimes it'll screw up Report Maker, and then we have to rewrite it. We have to find the problems and then figure them out. And then sometimes you guys are without a Report Maker for a while. That's happened a few times. And then there's also Microsoft Office 64-bit. Report Maker won't work on that. Those are some problems. Okay, and then the new one, which we're starting to realize is, as time goes on, we get less and less patient with our software, and we expect it to do more things for itself. But also, we don't want to wait. You click and you want things done. And making reports, which I thought was kind of cool. You can memorize reports, you can memorize sets of reports, and you just click a button and it just starts running all these reports. You can go have some coffee, go to the bathroom, come back, and reports are done. But we kind of want to just click a button and reports done. That's kind of what we want nowadays. And Report Maker is a little slow. There you go. So those are the biggest problems with Metrix that I know of. Okay, so Option C deals with all of that, or let's say resolves all of those, but there's some other things in Option C that are a lot nicer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually make a project from scratch, but I'm going to do it quickly, so don't worry, you won't get bored. And it's just like Metrix, and that's what's kind of nice, is a lot of this is just like Metrix. So it's project site area, and then you have meters. So what I did was I did new project, just like Metrix. And the first thing to do is to import data. So I'm going to import some utility data. So in Metrix, we had Gulf Med. In this project, we have this other project. I forgot what it's called, but we have different data. It's not Gulf Med. So I selected my data and I import it. So it realizes there's no meters, and it's going to make new meters out of it. That's what that action is. If they had meters already, then you could have said, I want new meters, or you could have had it add, append onto other meters. You have your choices there. Let's just go look and see what I've got. Okay, so it added 2 meters, and we'll look at the electrical one first. So there you go. So we do have data. We'll come back to this bill register in a minute. So let me import the weather data. So weather file imports, and that's it. So this is, again, that comes with the software, these samples, so you can do a tutorial. Import. Okay, and let's go back to the tree. So I don't see any weather. I'll show you where the weather is. So what I did was we were looking at something called the tree view. Well, I'm changing it now. I'm looking at the weather view. Metrix doesn't have these different views, by the way. And here's where my weather is. So basically, in Metrix, if you had a big project, with different weather locations, you would have all these weathers and they would live in the tree view only. Here, they actually live in the weather view. Okay, and I go back to the tree view and I go to the site and I can assign whichever weather I want to that site. Okay, so that's the weather. Okay, so let's look at the bill register. All right, now first off, one of the things I did, which I used to really bother me, was this miscredit tax. I always hated that. So I've gotten rid of, you can get rid of those now by just unclicking them or clicking. Maybe it's a little silly little thing, but you can get rid of them if you want. What I do want to do, those, I didn't have any demand, so I'm going to add, you might as well just see it, you can copy and paste. So I'm going to add some demand. So Control C. And Control V. So now I have some fake demand I typed in there. Okay, and we'll just look at the steam real quick. Okay, so here there is no demand, and I also don't need miscredit or tax, so I'll just get rid of those. So it just makes everything cleaner. There's less to look at, less to distraction. Personally, I like that. Okay, again, just like Metrix, you can copy and paste from Excel into this. And then again, this is also similar. So this is the bill cutoff dates, and generally you're going to do 15th is going to be your typical rule, and that will assign these months to these bills. Okay, I didn't do that for electric. Let's see what we got for electric. These are also the end of the year, so I'll just put in 15. It shouldn't change anything. Okay, so that's that. The next thing is variables. So I wanted to show you how you put in variables. This is way different. And this is actually, it was kind of clunky in Metrix. So again, we go to not the tree view, but the variables view, and we add a variable. Okay, so I right click here, add a variable. And I don't know what to call it. I couldn't think of anything good, so I just called it widgets. So whatever it seems to use. Okay, what's different here is you can assign a variable to different levels. It used to be they were only assigned to areas. Now you can assign them to anything. I'll just assign to the project. I think that's easier. So if you're doing a school, it used to be you had to assign, a school district, let's say, and you had number of school days or number of students or whatever, you had to attach that to each area. And one place for you to make good mistakes, not good, bad mistakes, was you would update it on one area, but you would forget to update it on the other. Well, here the variables live in one place, here. Only one place to update it, and then it updates for everything. Even if this was applied at the project, at the area level, it doesn't matter. The variable only lives here. Okay, so I don't have any data. I actually made some. I made it up, actually. I took this from Gulf Med and just copied and pasted these numbers. And it's crazy. It actually works. Let's see what happens. So copy. That's my date. Control V to paste it in. Okay, so that's my data. All right, so I need to get that variable in, I need to add this variable value. There it is. So now it's associated with the project. So the next step is I can now go into the tuning. So we'll look at the electric. You'll see that the tuning screen is similar but different. Okay, let's see what I mean by that. So yeah, it's similar. What I'm going to do first is look at the outdoor temperature graph, and I'll notice that as it gets warmer, they use more. So this tells me they're using electric for cooling, not for heating. So I can click on cooling here. And I'm going to click on this balance point analysis. So what this has done is it's done a regression for every temperature from 20 to 80. And you can see the R² value and the CVRMSE. So here's the R² CVRMSE for all these different temperatures. And this is the standard error of the estimate, which I probably shouldn't have put in, but I did. I think ESCO people really don't care about that so much. And this will tell you what the best balance point is, okay? Now, this, just because it's the best R squared and CVRMSE doesn't mean it's necessarily the best, what you should use, but it's telling you what, it's a good idea of what you should use. Like if your balance point's 80, you probably shouldn't use that. You need a cooling balance point that's gonna be at least below the cooling set point, which is often 72. So I'm gonna click on 72, because that's the one I like the most, and that will change this balance point here. And this thing is tuned. So I can unclick this and it's done, okay? Same for steam, I'll do it again. So steam, I'm gonna just guess it's used for heating, it usually is. And I can click on balance point analysis, and it says cooling degree days. So I need to change this to heating degree days. And 68 is what it likes as the best balance point. Okay, so it's the lowest CVRMSE. So I'll just double click on 68 and I'm done. Okay, so, all right, so that is the tuning screen. It's pretty much just like what you've seen before. Again, we have these just like in Metrix. So if you want to look at month markers, if you want to see if this variable works, you can try that. Here I'm trying to tune with widgets. It doesn't work with Steam. Okay, so that's that. What I wanted to show you next was modifications. So I'm going to add a modification. Now this is just like in Metrix. There's nothing really new in the modification screen. Well, there's one thing that's new. So let's say they added a pool, and let's say that would start in 1/1/2013. And they expect it to last forever. Okay, so, and I'm gonna add 500,000 kilowatt hours a month. I know it's a lot, but I just want you to be able to see it. So, paste. Okay, so this looks the same. I'm also going to add a measure. So new measure. That's interesting. I don't know what that's about. I know what that's about. Okay, so we're going to add a measure. Let's say 33% savings. And we'll start that. Let's see. About 1/1/2014. 2013. Oops, let's go 13. Okay. All right. And then again, go to the history, and then I'll put in a negative 33%. Copy, paste. There's one thing I didn't do here. So back to this modification. I wanted to add an event there. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is look at this scenario inspection. So let me go back to this. So scenario inspection. This is a lot better than what's in Metrix. So what this does, it shows you basically, you can look at it pretty much everything. You can see the baseline, actual, target, whatever. So we're looking at the first 12 months was where I was doing my fit. And after this is where we're supposed to be seeing savings. Apparently, maybe they didn't do much of a project for the first few years. And then after, finally, they started to do a project. The project got done in a year or something like that, right? So this is showing basic savings. If you wanted this data, you can always copy and paste all of this out, and it will paste it right into Excel. Also, I'm going to show you the target. So I expected 33% savings. You can see that. The other thing I wanted to show you, what's different here is we have a preliminary baseline. So the preliminary baseline, we added a baseline. Let me back up. So there's the baseline. What the baseline is whatever the fit line thinks it should be plus any modifications. That's what the baseline is. And that changed right here. So if I look at the preliminary baseline, this blue line is what the fit line thinks the usage should be. And then we added in this modification, and you can see how the modification is affected. So that's something that we've added that's new. And I personally think I wish we would have had this before. Anyway, that's that. So again, you can copy and paste this if you wanted to, and you can copy and paste all of this. Okay, so that's the scenario inspection. The next thing to show you are, I want to show one more thing. Let's say I'll add an event here. New, oh no, just go to events. And let's say the date, we'll use 3/15, 2018. And we'll just say big party because I can't think of anything else at the moment. Big party. Okay, so you can put events in Metrix to just identify when certain things happened. Like, I mean, first off, you're going to do baseline modifications sometimes, but sometimes events might happen which aren't going to be a modification. And you just might want to put them in. So one event might be beginning of savings period or end of installation period. That might be an event. All right, the next thing I wanted to look at is, yeah, I guess we'll go here. So we'll go to reporting. So I wanted to show you, it's got most of what Metrix has for reports. And I want to look at a time across scenarios report because this is probably going to be the most common report you do. So I wanted to just show the electricity report because that's the one we were dealing with, where I added the modification to measure the event. So we'll do it at the meter level. There's only one electric meter, and I'm showing events and modifications, and we'll see what that looks like in a minute. And all right. Okay, so here are those. So this was the modification and this was the event. So this is something that's new to Metrix, which, or not Metrix, but to our software. And I think that's really very useful. And so events might be beginning of performance period or something like that. Or I don't know. I guess that's up to you. All right. What do I have that's next? I wanted to show you rates. So if you go back to the tree view and go to rates. So this is really nice. One of the problems, or one of the, let's say, pain points of Metrix was, you know, if you're modeling rates explicitly, which is best if you can, then you would, you know, just leave it as is. You know, every year or two, the rates change. And so what you ended up having to do is add, the rates get attached to meters. And so you would have to attach the rate. Let's say you had a school district, or again, with, you know, 100 schools or 100 electric meters, then you'd have to change that rate in each of the meters. Or maybe you had two different rates. So some meters had one rate, some had a different rate. And so you would have to update that rate in some meters for one rate, and then the other rate you'd have to update in others. There's just so much room for error, for human error. So now what we have, which is better, is the rates live in one place. In fact, I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to add a, I think I'm adding, there you go. I'm going to add a rate for 2013, and I'll do a simple rate to start. So if I go to rate details, I'll say it starts on, well, we can say it starts a long time ago, but it goes till the end of 2013. And then I can add a simple rate. So it's 10 cents per kilowatt hour, $10 per kilowatt, and maybe $10 per month. So this is a very simple rate. We have this too. This is, you know, it's a little more detailed than I want to show you now, but what happens if you have a bill that's only 15 days or that's 45 days? What happens to the monthly charge? And this just deals with that. Do you want to prorate it or make it bigger or smaller? There's some utilities do that. Okay, so that's that. I got that rate done, but let's say we want, you know, the rate changes. So I'm going to add another rate. for 2014. So I'll call this one 2014. So the whole point is you can keep adding these rates to this one rate group, which is A10. And you'll have a different rate group, which might be E19, and then you keep adding to the E19. And then as you'll see, you assign different meters to certain rate groups. So you only have to make changes to your rate groups once, and here, only here, not at each meter, which is such a pain. So what I've done here that's different is I'm showing you what a complicated looks like. So we're going to do that. So we can go to details, and first I want to look at seasons. You can do summer, winter if you wanted to, and you can decide when is summer, when does it start, and when does it end. So October has 31 days. Okay, so there. Is that right? Oh, I'm sorry. This should start on November 1st. Okay, good. All right, so that's what you do with bills as travel seasons. You prorate or not. Some utilities do it either way. So Metrix kind of handled it always the same way. I don't remember which way, but one of the two. But this allows you to do it right. And then you can add your different charge items. So first you can do, your minimums and maximums, daily charges, monthly charges, etc. You could do it by season if you had these charges by season or just all year. So maybe I'll just put in a monthly charge of $25 a month, and now be done with that. I will add a consumption charge, and so I'll just call this KWH. If we had off-peak, we could do that, on-peak, off-peak, whatever. We can have a lot of different time of use periods. You can have summer, winter rates. We'll call that summer KWH. If they're tiered or not, you can do that. We can handle all that complexity that Metrix does, except for it's a lot more, let's say, it's a lot more explicit what it's doing. So let's just say this was my rate, 0.09 for everything else. So see, it says for all remaining. So it makes it kind of clear what you're modeling, whereas Metrix was pretty cryptic. I'll add a winter one too, just so you can see that consumption. Let's call this winter hours, and this one was winter, and we'll just keep this one simple, and we'll just say it's 5 cents. Okay, I'll add a demand one, and we'll just do it for all year to keep it simple. But if you did on peak and off peak, you can also add separate charges for max demand. So you have just different tabs for these different time use periods. I'll just keep it simple. I only have on peak. That's all I can do. Are there ratchets? It's just like Metrix. You can handle ratchets if you have them. I'm not going to do that. It's general provisions, and I'm just going to keep this simple. I'll say it's $20 per kilowatt. And that's that. Okay. And the last thing I want, I don't have power factor charges, but you can add power factor charges as well. But I don't have any power factor in my bill register. But there's all kinds of different ways that utilities handle power factor, and now rather than fudging it like Metrix did, you can do that. There are also fuel adjustments as well that you can add in. Okay, so I've done a couple rates, and this rate is going to be till the end of time. Okay, so that's great. So let me go back to the tree view, and I'll show you how to apply the rate. So if I go to the electric meter and go to rates and costs, I can choose how I want to handle it. So here is the utility rate schedule, and I pick a rate. I only have one, so that's the one. And then this is describing the rate, the different components I have in it. If I go look at SimActual, what I'll see is how the rate is calculated in dollars. Okay, so this was $10, this was 10 cents, at least for the first year. For the second year, it got a little different. As you can see, it got different. And then I had $10 charge and moved to 25. And then I added this in here, which is calculating an average dollars per kWh. If you had power factor, it would also show you things like what's the kVAR, what's the kVAR-H, and all of that stuff. But I didn't have it, so I'm not going to show it to you. Okay, so I think I've showed you most of this. The one thing I didn't show you, or one of the things I didn't show you, was reporting and exporting to Excel. You can export this to a lot of different formats. I'll do it to Excel. And let's put it in my junk directory if I can find it. I can't, so what is it here? Save. All right, oh, look at that, I even kept the events. I was wondering if the events were gonna get stuck in there or not. So there you go, so you can export this data to Excel as well. So I think I've showed you most of what is different in option C. So I'm hoping there are some questions. Otherwise, this is going to be an early exit. I don't see any questions. Does anyone have any questions?
Looks like you got a couple that have popped up here, John, or at least one with multiple.
Oh yeah, I do see
questions.
things. Oh my gosh. All right. Oh my gosh. Confidence and precision levels. Okay. No, okay. Oh boy. So no, it's not doing that. We have a CVRMSE, we have an R squared, and we got a mean bias error. We're not doing the fractional savings uncertainty. We're not doing confidence and precision. No, it's not in there. Do you have no, we do not have the flexibility to specify that either. The model absolute uncertainty, yes, absolutely. So that's the mean bias error. So let me go look at that real quick. So that would be right here. All right. So right here, that's my mean bias error. Okay. Go back to the questions. Well, that was on, okay, number, yeah, so ASHRAE 14, savings uncertainty calcs. Well, ASHRAE 14 has a CVRMSE, so yes, it does have that. It doesn't have fractional savings uncertainty, no. Can the IPVP savings recommendations be displayed? Well, okay, so you might have me on this one. So the IPMVP, I don't remember what the latest is. I'm pretty sure we're matching all that. So what we have, let me see if I have this. This is what it's looking at. So it's looking for an R squared above 0.75. IPMVP, I don't believe it's mentioning that anymore. The CVRMSE, ASHRAE talks about the CVRMSE, and it's a little more complicated than what we've shown. So if you have so many bills in the post-retrofit period, then you need a CVRMSE that needs to be below a certain number and all this other stuff. I think we assume that you're going to be showing at least a couple years of bills, and so these are the RMSEs that are acceptable for that. ASHRAE has this mean bias error requirement that it's about 0. We've got that. So I think I've answered that. The IPMVP, I'm sorry, I don't remember how IPMVP has changed their statistics, so that I can't answer. But I'm pretty sure I'm certain we're matching it. If we're not, I can easily change it to do so. So if you want to let me know, then I'll change it. I don't think that's going to be hard. Okay, the rule of savings have to be more than twice the standard error of the baseline value. Okay, so that's a standard error of the estimate. That is right. Yeah. So this the standard error of the estimate right here. Okay, so right. So we are calculating that. There isn't anything that says, this is what my savings is going to be. I predicted 33% savings, whatever. Is that enough and all of that? We don't have anything that says this is unacceptable or not. No, that's going to be on you. Okay, so maybe field to input your savings so you can calculate savings uncertainty based on your project. Right. So I'm Our software is used primarily by ESCOs, and ESCOs view uncertainty a lot different than utilities do, at least in my experience. What the utilities are looking, actually, I wrote a paper on this, and I thought it was going to be published this month, and it's going to be published next time, I guess in January, I hope, about this entire topic. But I think we've gone a little overboard on all these statistics. Performance contracting is about, let's get the savings number, let's decide if we've saved enough money or not, and based on that, we can decide if we need to write you a shortfall check or not. I don't think that saying something like, I am 68% certain that your savings is within 25% of this number is going to be very useful to performance contractors. It may be to bankers, it may be to utilities, but not to performance contractors. And this software is mostly geared towards performance contracting and to utility energy managers. So I don't think I'm going to do that. Another thing to keep in mind is ASHRAE 14 guideline does not accept a model with a bias greater than, yes, I got that. Okay, greater than 0.005%. However, if the uncertainty in the model is much greater than the bias, if the savings are expected to be much greater than the uncertainty, then the model would be acceptable. Oh boy. Yeah, I don't know how. I'd have to think about that one. But basically, we have a mean bias error that's 0. So this doesn't come up. That was a tough set of questions. Okay, so do we have more questions in that, Tyler? Or is that it?
Yeah, we have one from Dawn. Actually, two more in there. I don't know if you've seen them yet. So I hope that I didn't miss this already, but is there a process from transitioning from Metrix to option C? Is it just to set up a new project and copy paste data into one of the other?
Wow, there it is. I forgot about that. Thank you. Thank you. That was a softball. Okay, so there is this one. So we have a tool that will convert it over. So you find your Metrix file. Let's find one. See, I think I have both met in here somewhere. Desktop. See. Program files. Yeah, I wasn't ready for those. Those are some tough questions. I just feel that, dang, and I'm sure I'm not. They're probably my answers were not acceptable to my questioner, but boy, I wasn't ready for those. So I would like you. I would welcome a phone call with you later if you want to reach out to me, or an email chat. But I have some pretty strong feelings about all these topics. Where I just think this is overkill. All these statistics, I just don't think it's necessary. What we're trying to do is gauge savings and keep it simple, stupid, because our clients are not statisticians. They just want to know what they saved. So what I just did was I started, I'm converting GulfMed over, and it's doing that right now. So the good news is you do not have to copy and paste things. You do not have to go and make sure your tuning is exactly the same. All that stuff gets moved in. The bad news, though, is if you're modeling rates explicitly, it will not take your rates. So you're going to have to remodel the rates explicitly. That's the bad news. Okay, so that's the one thing that isn't coming through. What I would do, though, is if you do convert a file over from Metrix to option C, you really should make a savings report for your last year in Metrix, and then make the same one in option C and make sure that the savings numbers are matching. If they're not, let us know, and we'll find out what the problem is, and also we'll improve our software. Tyler, give me another question.
So how might we simulate the COVID-19 shutdown as a variable?
Oh my gosh.
They're giving you
all right,
good
that one's
questions.
tough.
Yeah.
Well, that one isn't that. Okay, so yes, that was a great question. Whoever asked that, thank you. Difficult question. What we've found is, from talking to a few folks, is that people have dealt with COVID in different ways. The first month or two, they dealt with it maybe one way, and then later on, they kind of realized this is going to be going on a while, and then they started dealing with it a different way. So, for example, air handlers maybe didn't get shut down immediately, or set points didn't get changed right away. Maybe they weren't turning off lights for the first couple of months. So it's not like there was just a monolithic way of, COVID just works this way and we apply it. Another thing is that all these buildings are dealing with COVID differently. In fact, I have a project, I think it's an option C. Let me see if I can find it. That has, and I didn't show you another thing too. Maybe I will. I have a project that is a school district, and it's really interesting because this guy, I won't mention his name, he might even be on the call, but he modeled everything with a variable for a number of school days. And we found that some of the schools, the variable did a really good job of predicting how much the baseline usage would be, or how much the usage would be. So that because if you type in 0 school days, because no one was there, the baseline actually models the actual usage. That was good, but that was only true for some schools. So you were able to actually, by looking at that, identify these schools are actually turning things off, and in other schools they didn't turn anything off, and the baseline is really low and the actual is really high. I could click around and look for it. I just don't know if I'm going to find it. That's why I don't want to waste your time looking for it. I'll try. See if it's right here is where it might be. COVID. I found it. So we can take a look at this in a minute as it opens. But no, there's no one way to handle this. Unfortunately, it's going to be difficult for all M&V people. And then there's also the issues of, well, what if we have a new project and COVID happened in the middle of my base year? I mean, my thinking is you might want to try to use the year before, but there are no clear cut rules. Everything is going to be gray in this, and you've got to really consider a lot of different things when you figure out how you're going to handle this. We did a webinar on this. Tyler, can you show them where the webinar is on that, or did we post that yet?
I don't know if Gabriel's gotten around to posting that one because it's pretty recent. I don't know if he's caught up, but I can make a note and I will send that email. Our follow-up email will include that link.
Okay.
How about that?
Okay. All right. So I'll just take a quick look at one of these schools. So this is a school where in almost every school he used number of school days, and he was able to get a really good fit doing so. Okay. So I made a list of there's different schools that you can see the baseline did really well and other ones that didn't. But here you can see, this is my guess, this is all pre-COVID. Let's see, COVID happened right about here. So you can see that for the later months, this baseline actually predicted the usage. So that's really good. So for some schools. So what we did was we entered into our variable that there was no school days during these COVID periods, and the baseline took care of it all by itself. But that's only for some schools. And for some schools that didn't happen. And it just depends on how. Here's another one. So here's one where the baseline is higher. So they must have shut down even more than so here's COVID period. And the baseline's higher than the actual. So it means that they shut things down even more than we would have guessed based on our model.
So the person that asked the question, your row of questions in the beginning, said, with the COVID situation, I've looked at meters before COVID and during COVID, then produce a trend for each meter to see how the consumption was affected. I did this weekly so we can produce baseline adjustments on a smaller scale.
Sure. Sure. I can't, I'm sorry, I can't think on my feet. I'm a little rattled from my first question still. So it sounds good. There's actually what you might find, the IPMVP came up with a really, really interesting new guide on non-routine adjustments, and it just came out. And you might want to take a look at that. There's some really neat methods in there. You might find it interesting. Okay, other questions?
how does the tool calculate the time of use energy usage?
So, well, so basically, if you have time of use, you would enter it into the bill register as on peak and off peak. Okay, so you would just enter in time of use. We're not going to apportion data between on peak and off peak. When it comes to doing tunings, which is the regression, there's two ways we can handle that. So one way is we can just do a regression on the total kilowatt hours, and then we apportion back to what is on peak and what is off peak. And the other way is you could do a regression of on peak and a regression of off peak. The second way often doesn't work very well, at least in PG&E territory. I know it doesn't work well because, for example, off peak, oh gosh, now I'm getting confused. In some of these utilities, you'll only have on peak for 6 months of the year and not for the other 6 months. And so the tuning kind of funny. And then mid peak for 6 months might just be, these shoulder, these shoulder hours, but during the other part of the year, it's the shoulder hours plus on peak hours. And so you can't do a regression for some of these time of use periods because they're different during different seasons. So for that reason, doing a regression of total usage usually will give you a good fit. And so so the question may be then, how do I then apportion baseline on peak versus off peak? And what the software does is for each month, let's say this was my base year, these first 6 months or so, it would figure out, okay, so if my off peak was 75% of my usage and on peak was 25%, we take the total baseline and then we apportion 75 to off peak and 25 to on peak. And we do that using those ratios from the base year period. And that's what we apply to the performance period that comes. I hope that makes sense. It's kind of an advanced class topic, and I do it usually with a spreadsheet, but I'm not going to break out a spreadsheet to show that at this point. What else you got, Tyler?
That's all the questions. So let me just go back to this screen. So I'm sharing my screen now. So I have my email up on the screen, tyler.stafford@Abraxas Energy. My phone number, stay on that for 2 seconds. If you have questions on option C, changing over to option C, I can answer those. Additional questions as it relates to the technical side, or if you want to pepper John with some great questions and discuss, you can send that to the webinars email that we've always shared, or you can also share that with helpdesk@abraxasenergy.com, and that will go to both Gabriel and John. So with that being said, John, did you have anything else to add?
I do not.
Oh, looks like you have one more question. Great. So we actually didn't mention cost of option C in this. So the base price of option C is $5,000, which is great compared to Metrix being $4,350 and all the added, features that John just went over. So that's $5,000 for new licenses. However, we do have scaled pricing for current Metrix users. So I'm assuming a lot of the people on this call are Metrix users. So if you would like to reach out to me, send me an email, or you can send it to either of the emails currently on your screen. We can set you up with a proposal based on the age of your Metrix license. That's how we're doing it. Does that answer? Is that good, John? Anything you want to add to that?
No, that's your business.
Oh, and one more thing that we typically get asked, and we're kind of ironing this out right now. But as you can see, Metrix has been around for a long time. There's not much else that can be done to Metrix, which is why we do offer the maintenance subscription, which includes upgrades to the software as well as unlimited tech support. Being that option C is a newer software, we will still offer maintenance. However, if there is something that we're drastically changing to the software on option C, you don't have to have maintenance to get that upgrade. We'll send that out regardless. We want you guys to have a functioning software, and any major changes that we make will be included. Maintenance, however, would would definitely still cover the tech support that you guys are familiar with Metrix. So, and then the other question we see is, will we be sharing this recording? Absolutely. We'll share this recording, and I will also, in the follow-up email, include a link to our COVID webinar, which John mentioned throughout his presentation today.
Guys, you gave me some tough questions. Good for you. Way to kick my butt. Very good.
Thanks, everybody. And if you have any questions, you have the emails on your screen, and we look forward to talking.
All right. Thank you, everyone.